Good morning. Welcome to the February 24th, 2020 meeting of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission. If you will stand with us, please, for our prayer and our pledge. Our Father in heaven, Lord, we're so thankful for this day, and we're thankful for the opportunity we have through you for an abundant life. Be with this commission. May we do the things that are in the best interest of the majority of citizens of this Rutherford County, and help us as we proceed forward with those decisions. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Call the roll, please, Gail.
Charlotte P.
Here.
Chip Pinion. Craig Lynch. David Jones.
Here.
Jim Averwater.
Here.
Lee Vogel.
Here.
Marvin Whitworth. Mike Cush.
Yep.
Pettis Reed.
Here.
Rhonda Allen.
Here.
Jeff Phillips.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Gail. This time we need to approve the minutes for our January 13th and February 10th meeting. I'll call on our Vice Chair, Pettis Reed.
Mr. Chairman, I have minutes from January the 13th and minutes from February the 10th. I have read through those and I have found no problems. Mr. Chairman, I move they be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve January 13th and February 10th meeting minutes. All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. No items withdrawn or deferred. There's been one item that we'll add when we get down to site plan approval, and don't let me forget that, Doug.
Yes, sir.
When we get there, okay?
Yes, sir.
6A, these are items submitted for preliminary plan approval. 6A1, the item number is 20-1001, Rooker Landing revision, Section 1, 112 lots on 51 plus acres, zoned PUD, located along Rooker Road. M.H. Way is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and good morning, Commission members. This plan was originally approved by the Planning Commission back in September of 2018. Soon after the approval, it was determined that the approved lot yield at that time, which was 237 lots, would not be possible due to the presence of wetland soils. The applicant has moved forward with portions of the development that were not affected, which is kind of what you're seeing here. The Planning Commission approved the final plat for Section 1, Phase 1A, just a few months ago, back in September of 2019. And another plat will be considered later in the agenda, and I won't go into that right now. I'll explain that later. The purpose of this revised preliminary plan is to provide consistency to the minor deviations between the approved preliminary plan and the approved plan development pattern book. Staff has informed the applicant that a PUD amendment will need to be made for the remainder of the subdivision that is not part of this revision. And that's basically for those parts. You can see further down that area for future development, and throughout that area, there are going to be some pretty significant changes there. A lot of that area that you see in kind of that hatched pattern, if you will, on lot 175, where a future storm lot detention area, a lot of that was determined to be wetland soils, really isn't appropriate for development. So the areas that you are seeing on here are consistent with what was approved in the pattern book. But again, there were some minor deviations that we approved at the original preliminary plan. This just brings everything into conformance. Everything is consistent. The plats, the final plats that we've seen, the final plat we'll see a little later, the preliminary plan, everything will be consistent at this point. And then we'll expect to see a amendment to the plan development in the near future. So as far as our comments are concerned, they need to adjust some setback lines to match the pad gradings for Section 3 of the rear of the lots. Basically lots 132 through 138, but beyond that, the plan itself is in good order, so we'd be happy to answer any questions.
So, Doug, can we make a motion and vote on this prior to seeing the tail end of this?
Yeah,
later on?
because this is all consistent with what's already been approved. So anything that would change would be under the amendment. So he's allowed to do what he's doing.
Okay.
But that really hasn't changed any. It's
All right.
it's the remainder of it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
I knew you would, Jim. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number, let's see, it's 201001, Rooker Landing Revision, Section 1. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6A2, item number 201002, Walnut Chase subdivision, 38 lots on 48-plus acres on PUD located off Walnut Grove Road, State Route 269. Walnut Chase Partnership is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The preliminary plan for this development was originally considered by the Planning Commission back in August of 2018. After discussion, the preliminary plan was deferred in order to obtain more information on the soils for the property. Soon after that deferral, it was determined that the approved lot yield under their original plan development, which was 105 lots, would not be possible, again, due to the presence of wetland soils. The applicant submitted a revised PUD pattern book, which was approved by the Board of Commissioners back in September of 2019. This preliminary plan, can't talk today, is consistent with the revised pattern book that was approved back in September. We did have several comments on that particular plan. Most of those comments have been addressed. It looks like they need to verify some ADA width for sidewalks and whatnot. But beyond that, those are things we can catch in the construction drawings. The plan itself is in pretty good order. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions. This new lot yield, as you can see, it went from 105 down to about 37 total buildable lots, 38 when you count the detention and amenities area. But that's basically they lost 2/3 of the lots due to the soils that they ran into. So again, with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Quick question. And Mike, this may be towards you.
Yes, sir.
Does the state define and will tell the engineer the definition and what property is considered a wetland?
It will be a wetlands determination, hydrologic determination, and the design engineer or a consultant for the design team will do a wetlands determination looking at the hydric soil, looking at streams and other kind of water features. They will make a recommendation saying, yay it is, or no, nay it's not. But the state will evaluate that and confirm or deny or modify the presence of wetlands and hydric soils. And
Okay. I guess my question is, this one and then the prior one we just looked at came back with a lot reduction because of the determination of wetlands.
yes,
But you kind of have to know or suspect that going in.
right.
So why don't you, is it because of a cost? I mean, why don't you go ahead and do the wetland study
Well,
up front?
I know this firm will be doing wetlands, what I've been told, on the front end. This was, remember, they had proposed lots all back in this back of lot 39
Yeah.
back here. And during the construction plan review, we saw a lot of hydric soils, and we said, hey, y'all need to have a wetlands determination. And they came back and said, oh, yeah, that's a lot of wetlands. We can't build back here. So they've decided moving forward that wetlands determinations are going to be done on the front end. And we're trying to do a better job looking at red flags on pieces of property. We look at a preliminary stage too. We'll look at the soils as well.
So when you suspect it, you have to send your plans and information into TDEC or EPA?
Well,
or?
you hire somebody that's certified to do the hydrologic determinations. And
Okay.
there's an outfit that, there's a lot of training and education and field work that goes into that. And they have to get approved to do these determinations. So, I mean, it's,
All right. So it's an extra expense.
Yes,
and
sir.
2 or 3 weeks have to pass before you get that information back.
yes, sir,
Okay.
right.
I make a motion to approve it, subject to staff comments.
Thank you, Craig.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 20-1002 for Walnut Chase subdivision. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6B, these are items submitted for final plat approval. 6B1, item number 19-2091, Frank A. Beard subdivision, 3 lots on 4.71 acres, zoned RM, located along West Gum Road. Frank A. Beard is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mike's, don't worry about pulling this one up.
Okay.
We did receive this. It's been received and been processed for the last probably good couple months now. I don't think anybody's here representing that application. It does not look like it. Essentially what he's wanting to do is subdivide it into 3 separate lots. We sent our comments to this several weeks back, and I've had some discussions with the surveyor regarding that. On your staff comments, you'll see that it included a fire hydrant waiver. We did receive information from CUD, as I recall, that said that this line can support a hydrant, a hydrant, so that's not going to be required. However, we never have received any of the revisions back. So since nobody's here and we still haven't seen revisions, it'd probably be more prudent to just defer this until we
Motion to
see
defer.
something.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to defer Frank A. Beard subdivision. All those in favor of that motion to defer, please say aye.
Aye.
And motion carries. Thank you. 6B2, item number 202004, Terry Coulter, 1 lot subdivision, 1 lot on 1.68 acres on RM located along Potts Road and Bill France Road. Alton Coulter is the applicant. Request for subdivision waiver to allow the creation of a lot without soil information. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The applicant today is proposing to split a portion of the subject property off from the remainder of the tract, which is located directly across Bill France Road. You can see on the you can see on the plat directly across the street. On your staff comments on your iPads, the map that our GIS planner provided, you can see where the remaining tract is in relation to the subject property. The proposed tract will not have an approved soil site and will be an unbuildable lot until a soil analysis can be completed. So at this point, the applicant is just asking for the plat to be recorded as an unbuildable lot. There are notes on there to that effect. The applicant understands that if this is to move forward for any type of development, they will have to identify some sort of a soil site and do an amendment plat to actually make this a buildable lot. Our comments have been addressed. Really, the only reason it's coming before you is for the waiver for the unbuildable lot. The applicant is present as well if you had any additional questions for her, so we'll be happy to answer any questions.
That done often without the soils and
We see it occasionally. I won't say that it's something we see every meeting, usually maybe like once a year, something like that. It's not unheard of.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 20-2004 for Terry Coulter 1 lot subdivision. Other questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6B3, 20-2007, re-subdivision of Lot 1 of Clarence A. Thomas 1 lot subdivision. 1 lot on 1.16 acres on RM located along Gumpucket Road. Clarence Thompson is the applicant. This is a waiver to create a lot less than 5 acres on a private easement and possible fire hydrant waiver. Doug?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The Planning Commission did approve a waiver request for this property back in August of last year for the smaller lot along a private easement, as you can see. The plat is consistent with that waiver request. Of course, we can't approve administratively, even though it's only a 2-lot, so that's why it's coming back before you. We did have some questions regarding whether or not this was going to be within 500 feet of a hydrant, or 1,000 feet, excuse me, of a hydrant. The request has been submitted to CUD, but it was only submitted last week, and at this point, they haven't completed their analysis. They're not sure if it's going to require a waiver or not. It's kind of one of those situations. It's a 6-inch line. It could go either direction, really. With that, as far as that, really, that's one of the only outstanding comments that we have. Looks like they do have to show a culvert along the entrance of Lot 1, a couple minor things like that, but the biggest issue at this point is whether or not a fire hydrant waiver would be required on this or not, and we just don't have an answer to that yet. So with that,
That's just a distance check?
yes, that'd be a distance check. Mhm. I'm not sure if anybody's here representing that application. Doesn't appear so.
What's the recommendation of staff?
I would personally feel better if we knew whether or not the waiver was needed for the fire hydrant, because if it's not, if you approve it tonight or today, and it turns out that a waiver for the hydrant is required, they're just gonna have to come back.
Give me a motion to defer.
Second.
Do we have a motion to defer?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second to defer. This is item number 20-2007. This is a re-subdivision for Clarence A. Thomas. All those in favor of that motion to defer, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Motion to defer carries. Thank
And
you.
just for the board's information, if we do get that determination back, we can always put this on the night meeting in 2 weeks, so they won't have to wait a whole month.
Very good. Thank you, Doug. 6B4, item number 20-2010, Allen Road subdivision, 4 lots on 4.89 acres on RM located along Allen Road. Simmons Builders is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The applicant is proposing to divide this property into 4 lots, as you can see on your screens. All lots will have direct frontage onto Allen Road, but as you can see on the left-hand side of the lots, there will be a cross-access easement between the lots. They'll all share that common driveway, but each one could have their own driveway should they need one. They all do have 50 foot of frontage. As far as our comments are concerned, they have addressed all of our comments. This plat is in good order, and we'd recommend approval.
Very good.
One driveway there and 2 here.
Questions?
I can't see the driveway.
Now, you said they use a common driveway?
Yes, right there. Yeah, Mike's kind of, he's kind of highlighting where it is.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 20-2010, Allen Road subdivision. Other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6B5, 20-2012, Creeks Bend, Section 2, Phase 2, 8 lots on 3.6865 acres on RM located off Old Lebanon Road. Silver Hill Partners is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The preliminary plan for this section was approved by the Planning Commission back in March of 2018. This phase does appear to be consistent with that approval. The subdivision was originally approved requiring sprinkler systems, residential sprinkler systems, due to the lack of hydrants. So that would be the same for this section, and actually for the next section we'll be looking at as well. Most of our comments have been addressed. There was a sinkhole that was filled in this area that affects several of these lots. Before building permits are issued, we'll just need the geotechnical reports for those lots that were affected by that, and they need to update the note just a little bit there at that double asterisk there. They'll need to update that a little bit, but beyond that, the plat itself is in pretty good order besides those issues.
So Doug, there's a difference between a sinkhole being filled and a sinkhole being mitigated. Is this just dumped? I mean, do they dump a couch in there and say it's filled, or is this?
No, during construction of the main section, Section 2, Phase 1, they discovered a large sinkhole that actually crossed Crooked Creek and went back up into a couple of these lots back up on Toll House Road for this section. So it was repaired, it was mitigated, it was closed properly with the geotechnical report on, engineer on site. We just need the notes added that the report needs to be submitted before building permits can be issued for those lots.
Thank you.
Those lots will have some type of a flag or a note attached to
Yes,
them?
on the plat here, it says, you know,
Already?
geotechnical.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
We just need an additional lot added and that the reports be submitted to us.
Thank you, Mike.
I would make a motion for approval subject to all staff comments
Second.
and approval of the waiver, or, I mean, approval of the,
Sprinklers, fire hydrant.
yeah, yeah, sorry.
We have a motion and a second to approve with staff comments on item number 20-2012, Creeks Bend, Section 2, Phase 2. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6B6, 20-2013, Creeks Bend, Section 2, Phase 3. 7 lots on 3.4 acres on RM located off Old Lebanon Road. Silver Hill Partners is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, sir. This is the same subdivision that we were just looking at, so I won't go into all the preliminary details. Again, this is consistent, and the fire hydrant sprinklers requirements and everything we talked about would apply here as well. Most of our comments have been addressed. There's a couple of just small tweaking things that they have to do, tying down a couple of easements and updating a note, but nothing that we would deem significant enough to require any kind of a deferral on this. These are things we can handle before it's actually recorded. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. And if Mike had anything further than that.
No, it's just some of these easements are not parallel and perpendicular to lot lines, so we just need a little bit better way to tie those down.
No,
Motion approved.
yeah, no sinkholes here?
Not on this side, no. No, sir.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 20-2013, Creeks Bend, Section 2, Phase 3. Other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? That motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6B7, item 20-2015, Rooker Landing, Section 1B, 45 lots on 37 plus acres zoned PUD located along Rooker Road. Land Quester is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The preliminary plan, of course, we talked about this earlier. The preliminary plan for this section was approved by the Planning Commission back in September of 2018. The revised plan was considered and approved by you all just a little earlier in the agenda. The final plat for Section 1A was approved back in September of last year, which comprised of 4 lots, and those were the lots located along Rucker Road. Since that time, utility issues necessitate that those 4 lots that were going to be conventional, if you remember right, that plat actually had those 4 of those lots along Rucker Road were all going to be on conventional septic systems and not tied into the step system. What ended up happening was they had to make some changes to the electric line. It had to be moved further in, as I understand it. So what happened is it impacted some of the soils that they were going to be using for the conventional septic systems, and it affected them to the point where now all of those lots have to tie into the step system for the development and not be on individual conventional systems. So what we have asked the applicant to do is, rather than just say this is 1B, he needs to get rid of that B on Section 1, just to call this Section 1. The original Section 1A plat will just, retire into the sunset at some point. It'll expire and it'll be no more. And this will just be Section 1, and that'll be the end of it. As far as the comments are concerned, the plat appears to be in good order. I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware that there's not going to be a 1A and 1B anymore. If you approve this, it's going to be Section 1, and that's going to be it. So just wanted to make sure that was clear with everybody. I hope I didn't confuse everybody with my explanation. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. I believe a representative of the applicant's present. I think I saw him sitting in the back. So.
Move to approve with staff comments.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 20-2015 Rooker Landing, Section 1B, which will now be 1, period. Questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6C, these are items submitted for site plan approval. 6C1, item number 19-3057, JT Parkhurst Farm, construction of 4,200 square feet construction, sales, and service building on .66 acres, Zone CS, located at 2519 East Main Street. Nicole Michelle Bird is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, sir. Thank you. As you recall, this site plan was deferred at the Planning Commission's January 27th meeting, just about a month ago. Staff has been working with the applicant's design engineer on the drainage for this site since that time. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mike to have him discuss those items in more detail.
Okay. The problem we had originally was that there's not a downstream receiving ditch along East Main Street. And let me get back to the planimetry. So they're proposing to go in this area right here where it says 3 and 10. The developer does own the adjacent property here, and I believe that's some rental property and some it's zone commercial, isn't it, next to it. So they own both parcels, and they're wanting to do the plan, if I can pull that back up, on the, I guess, the western parcel. So the problem we're having is without a downstream receiving stream, how are we going to compensate for the increase in runoff? We're adding, impervious area for driveways, parking, building roofs, and whatnot. So the design engineer has been working with us to come up with a bioretention area, and you can kind of see in this area right here. Our only big hiccup is it's right here next to this building, and because of survey and backlog, they haven't located the building yet and where the septic system is. We looked online, we couldn't find it. Maybe the state could find the record for this. So that's the only issue I'm having. In theory, it could work. They've got really good soil in this area. Let's see if I remember, it was Cumberland or something. Let's see. This whole area is loam soil. So, and it's from the USDA reports, it's got some good depth to it too. So, in theory, it could work, but without knowing how close this building is and where their septic system is located. So they're wanting to do it right in this area right here. So, in theory, it could work, but we're not certain just yet.
Is it going to be on both lots or just
Yes,
one?
sir. It's going to straddle. Let me pull that plan back up. So this is what they're proposing. They own the adjacent western parcel right on the corner of Twin Oaks and East Main. And what I'm worried about is the location of the existing structure, its proximity to this stormwater feature, the bioretention area. Typically, you don't want it closer than 10 feet from the foundation because you can undermine the foundation of the structure. And we also don't want it on top of their septic system. So, like I said, in theory it can work, but we don't know for certain.
So, Mike, if you don't have any other issues with it, is it possible for us to approve it and state it in such a way that,
Yes.
that if it passes this hurdle of setbacks or whatever your issue is, then it's approved?
Yes, sir. Right. Now, there's some revisions that's going to go on that's not reflected on this, there was a proposed, let me get back to the first page, proposed underground electric line that was in between the new driveway and the bioretention area in this area here. So they're going to move that underground electric underneath the new driveway. That'll give them some more room to move that over. So, they possibly could have the area to work, and it could work. So, and with your approval, they won't move any dirt. They won't start any construction until they've met all our requirements, and we're sure that it's not going to impact the adjacent house, the adjacent septic system. And then one other thing that we were wanting to do is, because it's a separate lot of record, it would also need an easement, so that'll need to be added too around that bioretention.
Mike, you got a lot going on there. Why wouldn't we want to see that?
The applicant wanted to have it on the agenda. That's why I'm
That's a
discussing
lot of
it.
ifs, maybes.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Moody. I'm civil engineer for SEC, representing this property. As far as the bioretention location goes, currently we show it anywhere from 5 to 8 feet off of the building foundation. We are willing to move that underground utility, the underground electric, in order to move it as close to that property line as we definitely can. That way it gets it away from that foundation. We don't perceive that being an issue. We've actually oversized that bioretention based on the impervious area that is required for that site, to give it a little bit more detention area to make sure that there's no water runoff as requested by staff. As far as the septic system goes for the adjacent lot, it has been confirmed by the current owner that the septic system for that current building is located in the back of the property. So we don't foresee any issues with the septic system there. We are going to verify that with TDEC. We're just waiting on their response. We would just like to get a condition of approval for this. That way we can work with staff with the bioretention design, get that nailed down, and that's the only concern that we have.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions for me? I'll sit back down. Thank you.
So the residence on the corner is currently rental property?
I believe that is correct.
Is it a duplex?
It
is, she says it is.
Oh, okay.
Is staff comfortable with approval?
I'm not going to let them start without all my T's crossed, my I's dotted.
There's a couple of us, at least a couple of us sitting over here that don't feel comfortable with it either until we have that information. You know, you said you didn't.
Yeah, it looks
You
like
said you
it.
didn't have it.
Of course, that's where
The
the
applicant
engineer-
says they did have it, and
like
you know, I'm nervous as to be approving a bunch of stuff that you don't have, or say you don't have.
As flat as it can be up there.
Was this deferred last month?
Yes.
Okay. Do they have to take action on it?
We can either defer or deny for me.
This one person.
Okay, okay. Site plans aren't.
I have a question though, Mike.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have an added level of comfort knowing that the same owner owns both parcels?
Yes.
Because they're not going to want to compromise their own septic
Right.
situation.
Yes.
So there's an added level of
Absolutely.
security there,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And then can you describe for me biodetention? What does that look like? That's
Well, it's a bioretention area. It allows to collect and have the stormwater soak in. It's got a lot of hurdles too. So I mean,
is that like a pit with a grate, or what? What is
no,
it
it'd
look
be.
like?
Let me go back
Sand.
to the plan.
My iPad locked up, so I can't zoom in.
Open contour.
So what they're proposing
There you go.
is to have
Just seeps down in the ground.
an area to collect stormwater, and it soaks in the ground. And this loam and soil's got a lot of good infiltration capabilities, and from what I saw in the USDA report, it could run pretty deep, but we need to know, how deep it runs, and what's the capacity of the receiving ground. So this area here is a modified I guess, soil material. It's got, clay, sand, not clay.
It's got some color.
It's got a little bit of clay. It's got sand. It's got good organic material, good soil, topsoil. So it's a filter media. So the water soaks in, collects in the stone layer, and then infiltrates into the surrounding soil. So it's a way to kind of offset the increase in runoff. It's a place to collect. So what we've got, let me get back here. There's not an open ditch. It wants to flow to the east, to down Woodbury Pike to Double Springs. Once you get past this second parcel, a ditch opens back up, and it flows like it's supposed to. But over time, because this is I think that's the Handlebars Biker Club right there. So there's not a defined ditch right through here.
If the saws don't pan out to what you think it's going to
then
would just turn it into a detention pond?
They have to have an outlet for it too. So I mean, if the soil doesn't take it, it's got to go somewhere. We've the likelihood of Loman receiving that is pretty good. It's got a good infiltration capacity. So, Jeremy,
as far as the soils accepting the water, we're willing to do an infiltration test report. That'll actually determine what the infiltration rates of the existing soils are. Usually that ranges anywhere from a ½ inch per hour to 1 inch per hour. We'll provide that prior to any permits ever being requested, just to make sure that the design works. If that infiltration test comes back that it's a negative and it's not going to take any water, then obviously we'd come back for a redesign and we'd go back through the process to figure out what our alternatives are. But we feel comfortable with the soil that's there, that it will accept the water we're proposing to put there.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we defer until the staff receives what the staff feels like they're comfortable with.
I have a motion to defer
Second.
and a second. Other questions or comments?
Yes, I wanted to ask one question while you're here about the entrance, the shared entrance on that property line. Is that just a temporary construction, or is that to be a permanent shared entrance for both properties?
I don't think that the roadway is on the property line itself. That roadway is on the one lot. Oh, no, it is. It is on the property line. Then
Yeah.
Currently it's designed for that one building, I believe. Because
Okay.
with the buyer retention to the east, it would not allow traffic for that.
Well,
other
and
building.
then that led me to wonder what's planned for that parcel that has the rental unit on it, because typically you don't do a split entrance like that unless you're planning to develop that side, which would bring into question the bioretention being able to be retained if that gets developed. So I'm just curious what the plan was there.
I don't know what the intent of having the drive. The only thing that I can think of is if you move that entrance further to the west there, that the alignment for vehicular traffic and the parking stalls right there wouldn't adhere for people backing up coming out of those stalls.
As I recall, the original design, they wanted 2 entrances. We were talking about the possibility of just having the 1 entrance in and out. But
To bring your bioretention back to being on site, possibly.
yeah, as I recall, that the applicant really wanted the double entrances, and it worked better like this than the other way.
Okay, just
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I have a motion to defer item 19-3057, JT Parkhurst Farms. All those in favor of that motion to defer, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposition? Motion to defer carries. Thank you. C2, item 20-3003, Burnt Knob Self-Storage, construction of 50,400 square feet of mini-storage facility space on 10.9 acres zoned LI, located along Burnt Knob Road. Stuart Conway is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, sir. Thank you. You'll see on the screen, Mike's got you can see the right kind of in the center there, you've got a larger tract on the, I guess that'd be the kind of in the center of the screen, and there's a smaller tract right next to it. Now, you can leave that up, that's fine.
Sorry, I'll get there. I got so many programs going.
Okay, there we go. The larger tract on the right, which is Mike will highlight here in just a second. Yeah, he's highlighting both tracks. Okay, we'll just look at the small one. Don't look at the big boxes, but the smaller lots in there adjacent to the quarry. The larger one was zoned industrial a few years back. The smaller one was zoned industrial, light industrial, this past year. We did see a site plan for the larger tract, which would be the one on the right, back in 2016. Now that site plan has expired, plus the applicant wanted to put some additional land on the development. So that's what he's proposing to do now. That's kind of what you're seeing on this particular site plan right now. Like again, it had been longer than 18 months, which is why that original plan has expired. Staff does, basically what he wants to do with the property is use it as a self-storage facility, mini warehouses. Staff does have concerns about this particular development. There is a very large amount of topography on this site, and the applicant is proposing to do a very substantial amount of cut on this property to get these down to a point where he could actually have these storage units on the property. I know there's several issues that engineering has. I'll let Mike discuss those. Staff also has concerns with the viability of the landscaping material that they're proposing. The applicant is proposing, of course, being surrounded by residentially zoned property, they are required to have a Type 3 buffer since this is industrially zoned. I mean, they're talking in some areas, basically it's a rock shear wall. And staff just has real concerns about the viability of some of that material that they want to keep as part of the landscape buffer on the property. So with that, most of our other comments have been addressed, but there are several that are still outstanding. And I'll let Mike get into a little bit more of the cut and everything on the property.
Okay, so we've got a pretty steep slope. The property, I think it's 10% or greater, maybe even more, and they're proposing to have the site come in at a little over 1%. So we're looking like, I think it was 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 55 feet cut in the back, and it tapers off towards the front. But that's a substantial amount of cut. And I'll just go out and say it. I don't believe he's ever going to build this. I think he's using this as a borrow pit. I could be totally wrong, but that's I asked him to put in how much volume they're taking out. It over 286,000 cubic yards. And if you figure a dump truck can carry about 15 cubic yards per load, that's 19,000 dump truck loads. So that's a lot of material coming out of here. And I don't believe that they can finish this before the site plan would expire. I went back and forgive me, Doug, if I misspeak, but site plans, they're only good for 18 months. And if there's no valid building permit associated with site plan, then the site plan will be deemed to have expired in that 18 months.
That's correct.
So I don't think there's any way without having to come back over and over and over and update the site plan. They are proposing a couple benches, 10-foot bench from the property line, well, 30 foot over, and then have a 10-foot bench and then come back down. So I can go on.
Well, before you go on,
Yes, sir.
go back to that cut you just showed.
Okay. The bench
cliff,
or
the cliff, yeah, the bench.
Okay.
Is that solid limestone in that
Yes.
50 feet?
Yes, I believe it is all limestone. Right behind the property is the Rogers Group quarry. So this is what's going on. This is a substantial hill in this area, and it's solid Gladeville rock through here.
If this is approved for a storage facility and the material's taken off the site, isn't that quarrying?
I mean, every site has need for fill or waste material to be removed off site. Very rarely do you balance a site. With this dramatic of a cut, 55 feet in the back, let me get back to that. That's the material that I asked them to put 2 cross sections through the site, so you can see it looking through the side of the hill. So this is what all this material from this dash line to the solid line is going to have to be removed. So we're 286,000 cubic yards of material. That's pretty excessive spoil coming off a site. I've never ever seen that much material come off this small a site. We have had some sites in the past where you just can't make it work. You got to truck the material off somewhere. But
I passed this site the other day, and there's activity there already.
In operation or in this site plan, does this keep them from having to get official permits as a borrow pit, or that's what it sounds like it's headed?
Well, you see, and the issue with a borrow pit, the way our regulations are drawn up for borrow pits, they really envision larger tracts of land. There's setback requirements and the amount of disturbance on the area.
Not necessarily yardage based then.
Correct. No, it's not yardage based. It's actually based on the amount of area that you're actually disturbing on the site, not so much the amount of material you're taking off. But quite frankly, this site, like Mike said, it's only 11 acres, which is that's a decent sized piece of property. But most of the borrow pits we see, we're talking like 50, 100 plus acres.
Yeah.
And, they're limited to either, depending on the sites, 25% or 10% of the area of the property.
Is there a yardage trigger with T-Deck that would throw it into a mining operation with that many thousands of yards?
I don't believe there is. It's if the material is processed in any way, it automatically becomes a mining operation. Mm-hmm. So they would have to take the, dynamite, take the boulders, load them in a truck it off. So I don't even think they can get 15 cubic yards of material, if you don't bust it up.
Right. If you get it down to just a graded solid rock size, you're still going to have a lot of voids.
So yeah. I've heard 4 years, they'd have to take, 10 truckloads a day, it'd be 5 years with, getting 10 truckloads a day out of there. Yeah. So I have my doubts on this one very seriously. There's all kinds of, let me go back in here. There's special conditions for mining, drilling, and quarrying, that this would skirt around. There's geologic investigations, there's groundwater investigations,
noise,
dust, everything
blasting,
that has to go into that.
Yeah.
And then there's a performance standard section in our zoning ordinance, and it says no land or building in any district shall be used to occupy in a manner such as to create any dangerous, injurious, noxious, or otherwise objectionable fire, explosive, or other hazard, noise, or vibration, smoke, dust, odor, form of air pollution. And it goes on. It says, in such a manner or in any such amount to adversely affect the surrounding area of adjoining premises, referred to herein as a dangerous or objectionable element. So what I'm saying is, you're gonna break some eggs to make some omelets. It's gonna, you got to make a mess to have a site in progress. But 4 or 5 years of a borrow pit, and I would think it would probably be longer. I just think they're trying to get around the rules.
That sounds like to me too.
If they were to do, it's zoned, I believe, light industrial.
Mm-hmm. They can't do
it.
That
Would not, a mining, drilling, quarrying would not be allowed in that zone.
Now, borrow pits could, but like I said, the way the regulations for borrow pits are drawn up, we didn't envision this. So this site would never qualify for any of that. They would have to ask for variances, several of them for setbacks, amount of the site being exposed, different things like that. Like I said, when we created those regulations, we were creating it for the larger tracts of land, not for what I would say relatively are smaller tracts like this.
Mike, if he blasted the back off, took it to the front, leveled it off, it'd be so tall you couldn't get up to it.
Well, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like I said, there's going to be waste material on most every site, but not,
This is all
300,000 cubic yards of waste material on such a small site. There's ways to, ramp up and have a terrace, put some buildings, ramp up, have a terrace. There's ways to do things like that instead of just having a straight 1% cut back into the side of the hill. So, I'm going to call it like I see it.
That's that final grade does indicate to me a borrow pit situation. So that 1%.
Stuart Conway, I'm the owner. If you got any questions, I could address this. We just wanted to do road level 1% grade. That's why we didn't do it on the first go with the eastern portion. We felt like the ramp was too steep. We didn't want U-Hauls and box trucks climbing a steep grade. Actually own other property and development, so majority of the material would be used for those. I did my homework before we came into the county and discussed this. I won't be considered a mining operation. Talked with all TDEC and the mining section in Knoxville. As long as we don't produce the material, which we do not intend to, it's just straight excavation and some blasting, considered shot rock. And so no permit on that's needed. As far as borrow pit's concerned, it's not a borrow pit. I intend fully to develop the property, and we'll more than likely, the time frame is off on that. I can use more material faster on my other sites, so 4 or 5 years not accurate. It would probably be 12 to 24 months, and I could be willing to do building permits prior to finishing the site. We could do phase 1 before we're even finished excavation of material. So that's it.
Stuart, did you say that this material is going to be used for your other sites that you have? How many other sites do you have?
Currently, I have one right now on Warrior Drive.
Are you going to use all that on one site?
It needs a lot. We've currently hauled in 2,000 truckloads on 2 acres.
Where on Warrior Drive?
I know where he's talking about. It's down from Riverdale High School. It's between Riverdale and the.
New Salem?
Yeah. There's a really low area in there.
Where the apartments?
Right across the street from that. I think that's
where
you're
they're
talking.
working at, where they're doing some site grading?
I believe so. Is that where you're talking about? Yeah.
It's on the plot from Warrior to the interstate.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. It backs up to the interstate, as I remember.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying now. Yeah.
Answers that question.
I thought a borrow pit, I thought the material had to stay on site.
No,
No,
not
not
for
for a
borrow
borrow
pit.
pit.
Yeah. Like I said, most sites don't balance, 100%. So there's going to be either needed material that comes in or material that has to go off. But I think this is just a borrow pit for his other projects.
What, excavation this massive, what does that do for the drainage of that area?
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's not doing any geotechnical investigations, any pre-drilling. He's not doing any groundwater movements. He's, seismic investigations like the quarry has to do. So.
The site's a very unusual site. We're surrounded on 3 sides by the quarry. It doesn't perk. Water's not on top, so there's extremely limited use for the property. And that's why we propose the storage. We've got a lot of development to the west.
Yeah, and I don't think the issue necessarily is the use of the property.
No.
The property is zoned light industrial. It's a use by right. I mean, you don't have to go any further as far as special exceptions or anything like that. The concern that we've relayed, quite frankly, since the beginning of this, even when it was just the one property, not both of them together, was the amount of cut that you were proposing here. That's always been one of our primary concerns. This isn't new that you're hearing this. So, and like Mike said, we see sites, pretty much any site we look for or look at requires some kind of site grading. That's just part of the nature of the beast. But I've been a planner for over 20 years, and I've never seen a project of this size that required that much cut ever. So,
What kind of resource commitment, if it's okay for me to ask, do you have to get that removed in 12 to 24 months? Because that seems like it's unachievable if you don't have the resources and equipment to do that.
I have a third-party company I use, and that's who did my Warrior site, and we can move the material.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, legal question.
Josh? Let's say Josh, I'm sorry, Nick.
Nick.
old habits die hard.
Accepting staff's comments, we just really don't quite believe that's what's going to happen. But I don't know that we turn somebody down on because we don't believe that's what's going to happen. What's the legality of that? I mean, we have to come up with some rule why we can't, but this is, we just don't quite believe it.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it on the head there, but you've heard staff's concerns that they have with regard to the safety and welfare of how the project and the site plan has been proposed. I don't know if there's certain additional information that you would want. You could always defer this, and staff could continue to work with the applicant and get additional information. You might want to ask them if they need additional information to try and quell their concerns here. Mr. Lynch, you're correct that if the applicant has said that they're going to do this project and they're bound by the site plan, they'd have to do this project. They couldn't be doing something else. Now, of course, there's speculation about, it sounds like there's speculation from the board here about whether they're going to complete the project through its entirety and its fruition. I don't know that just as well as you all don't know that. But you need to have a basis within the zoning ordinance and the site plan requirements. And I believe the engineer here has cited some performance standards that he believes would apply here. You might want to ask him to further go over those with you as maybe a basis for your decision. But if you need additional information, you can always defer this. And if there's any specific legal questions you'd like me to look into, I can do that as well.
If I could just add, tying on to what Nick said, Rhonda, the questions you were asking earlier about the drainage and how's it affecting all those things. I mean, I guess the simple answer at this point is we just don't know. Because we don't have that information, we can't make any kind of an evaluation of that. So maybe a deferral or something like that where they can provide more of this information to give staff a level of comfort with this. I mean, it's going to, I don't know how much it's going to take for us to be comfortable with what he's proposing, to be quite frank with you. But at the same time, right now, we just don't have that information when it comes to it.
We could also deny it on that information too, though, couldn't we?
Well, I mean, you could deny that they didn't have it, but, at the same time, in that situation, a deferral may be more appropriate just because we can't say yay or nay because we haven't seen anything.
I guess for my part, I don't mind the development that's proposed here. I don't necessarily mind the material being removed, but I feel like we're skipping some important steps that are legal with the state as far as pre-drill, the seismic, the dust control, the plan for that. And I don't know if our ordinance, if the way it's written, that we can't require that, but that seems like some important things for that volume of material. And we also may need to back up and change to or cubic yard excess of on these sites, because to me, like I said, I don't mind the mini storage. I don't mind the material necessarily going to other sites because there's plenty of sites in the county to use it on. Just the notes that I've made, I just have a problem with the pre-investigations and the things that are due diligence. Like you said, the quarry right behind it has to maintain those things, and whether that's processed material being removed or not, it's material being removed, blasted. There's what are the dust controls, what are the seismic pre and post, and I mean there's a lot of things that I think need to be done there to develop this site, and I don't know how to require that, but that's where I'm having a sticking point.
Yeah, Lee, those are all fantastic points. So let me ask this question to Mike and Doug. This is where I'm confused. If we were to approve this like it is he not bound by the same dust, noise, stormwater levels as if this were a mining or quarry operation? I mean, you go a quarter of a mile and you've got stipulations on a quarry. I mean, and this neighbor with the red roof, right? He's going to get noise, dust, stormwater issues from the
Rogers on that.
where you're.
Yeah, I see what you're talking. I think we're just going to look at. I think I want to say the Rogers Group bought that property.
Okay. Well,
But regardless, yeah.
any surrounding neighbor.
Mhm.
Are you telling me that this piece of property is going to be under different regulations, even they're going to be dynamite blasting and excavation, as opposed to what's happening a quarter mile up the hill?
From the county standpoint, we wouldn't apply the mining and quarrying standards because it wouldn't technically be a mine or quarry under the zoning ordinance. Now, if there were state regulations as far as blasting and those kind of things that they would have to adhere to, then yes. Now, to go further to answer your question, those performance standards Mike was referring to a little earlier, those would apply regardless of what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any neighbor or business within the vicinity will be somewhat protected by a noise, dust, blasting ordinance, just like the quarry has to
Right.
do.
Now, I will throw this stipulation in there. That's talking about the activity of the site. Those performance standards are really talking about the activity of the property. What we're talking about here is site preparation.
Yeah.
You're going to have, I mean, like Mike said, with any site, you're going to have a certain amount of site preparation for everything. It's going to have dust, and it's going to have, maybe a little bit of blasting. Those are things that they would have to take care of. I don't know if we'd necessarily enforce the performance standards against that, but it just seems to us like for the next 4 or 5 years, that's the primary activity on the property is
And
removing
this material is going to be coming out here at market driven. So if the economy takes a dive, it's just going to sit for a long time until it continues to expire and have to get reapproval. So I mean, it's that's an excessive amount of material coming out of here.
Well, and I guess I'm kind of thinking along the same lines that Lee was, just in terms of, as far as the site plan goes and the use of the land, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. My concern is, this is a massive transformation in the topography of that land, and I'd really like to know the impact that it's going to have. Whenever we do development, we always look at, at least like 2 drainage culverts down, that kind of thing. I can't imagine there's not going to be some massive transformation to drainage, at least in that area, and maybe other considerations that you're thinking of as an engineer that I'm not. So those are the kinds of things that I guess I would like to know before we say, yeah, this is good to go. What are some of the other things that would give you a higher comfort level?
Well,
I envision a nice waterfall coming off 55 feet,
I mean,
And again, Doug, I understand that is the struggle by getting into means and methods of construction, because you have to balance the sites, and there are the cut, fill, and the grading operations that take place. It just seems like this is on an exponential level. I mean, for such a small site.
right. I mean, we don't see this. I mean, I've never seen this. I mean, I'll just be upfront. I've never seen something like this.
Let me ask this question before we kind of go any further. If this site plan would be good for 18 months.
Correct.
And if he's nowhere near building at the end of that 18 months, but he's taken a lot of material off of that property, and then he decides he don't want to do it after that 18 months, then everything is skewed, correct?
Right. I mean, once the material's gone, that's it.
We use TTL Engineering in Nashville, or Geotech. And that's who we used on the Warrior Drive property.
Can you speak up, please?
Oh, TTL Engineering in Nashville. That's who we use as our geotech. We do intend to use them on this site as well. Just love to have the opportunity to do the storage facility and to show my performance level. I really do feel that we can get phase 1 going before the expiration of the site plan.
But let me ask you a question, just right up front.
Yes.
Is it your intent to build a storage building, or is it your intent to fill other property that you have?
A combination of the two. I do want to do storage in this area, and I've owned this site for 4 years, and I'd like to see it developed at this point.
If you didn't have that other property, would you still be looking at building a storage facility
Yes,
here?
I do want storage in that area, yes. Yeah. I currently own some property on Veterans Parkway as well. Love the area, love the west side of Murfreesboro. I think it's got good potential.
Thank you.
He said that area, not that site. Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Can you show the satellite or Google Earth in relationship to the quarry behind it? Okay, and
These
what
two parcels.
at the top of his, when he cuts and there's to the top of his 55-foot hill, I'm assuming there's a lot more hill to climb before you get to the quarry property?
It goes back on the other side of the hill. The peak of the hill is at the back of his property, and then it goes back down.
Okay.
Quarry towards the quarry.
And okay, do you guys recall? Can the quarry move any closer to this guy's property boundary? Or have they reached their limit?
I don't know that. What they're looking to do is actually expand more to the west. They're not looking to expand going toward the south.
Or,
necessarily.
several months ago, we came with a proposal that maybe we change the limits or unrestrict the limits a little bit.
Right.
I guess where I'm going is, if you excavate a 55-foot shear wall, although it does have a bench in it, I get it's got a bench. Mike, I guess this question is for you. If you put a big 55-foot shear wall of limestone and you're that close to the quarry activity, does that create a weak link in the chain?
Possibly.
That at some point you could maybe have a catastrophic limestone
That's what's hard to speculate
failure
without an investigation.
without TTL telling you?
Yeah.
Without a geotechnical
Yeah.
investigation. I mean, you assume it's solid limestone, but I
You
mean,
never assume.
You never know for certain.
Mike, did you all receive a report from TTL?
No, sir. Just a site plan.
Okay.
Well, let me do this. I'm going to make a motion to defer for just the lack of geotechnical and stormwater information. I'm with Lee. I am not opposed to the fact that he wants to put storage units on here. I'm just concerned about the amount of excavation activity. I'm concerned about 5 million truckloads going down Burnt Knob. Pick a number of reasons. But I think the owner and staff needs to sit down with TTL and maybe hash this out a little bit more before it comes back to us. So I'm going to make a motion to defer.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to defer item 20-3003, Burnt Knob self-storage. Other questions?
Can we require any sort of a preliminary investigative report from TT or hit the geotechnical
Let us work
choice
with
at this time?
I mean, I think the applicant's pretty clear on what we're going to want. So
Okay, because I
think,
would like to see at least a preliminary. I know, before he makes that investment with a full. Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
and to follow up on Mike's point, we want to make sure that hill's not going to collapse. I mean, that's an important part of this site plan, is knowing that hill's going to be secure once this is developed the way it's being designed. So I think that's fair.
I mean, let's put your thinking cap on for a minute. All this limestone has undergone years and years of blasting, right? Vibration and movement. And you have this big slope that helps support some of that. So now all of a sudden you're going to take a big excavator and take out a huge chunk, and you have now a big vertical 55-foot wall. So you have a little what they call global stability issue. So now you could have exposed any weakness in the wall that may have traveled back to the quarry. You just don't know. I mean, I could be loading my house in a rental. I could rent a storage unit, and then one day the whole mountain comes on top of me. You just don't know. So this is going to require a huge geotechnical study, and it ain't going to be cheap. That's what I don't understand. The money here is in the, it ain't in renting out storage
Grading.
units. It's in the excavation. So it cost $1 million just on the site, maybe more, to get this site excavated. So anyway, could be a lot of potential problems here.
We have a motion and a second to defer. Any other questions or comments?
I just feel like that in the absence of some of the state requirements, I think it's part of our due diligence to ask for more information on that, and I feel comfortable moving that direction.
This is a lot better than I do.
Doug and Mike, you know what we're asking for?
Yes, sir. We do.
Okay, very good. Other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to defer burnt knob self-storage, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to defer carries. Thank you. 6C3, item 20-3004, Northside Estates, Phase 2, mail kiosk. Construction of a mail kiosk and related parking zoned RM located off Las Casas Pike, State Highway 96. RHB is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yeah, we've got 3 kiosks on the agenda for today. First one, as you stated, being in Northside Estates. I won't go into all the particulars as far as why this is a requirement with the U.S. Postal Service now, since we've already kind of hashed that over. But as far as this site is concerned, most of our comments have been addressed. They will need to provide a photometric plan. They do have a light that they are showing out there. We just want to make sure that that meets our requirements for photometric plans. Also, just a couple of tweaks on the actual site plan itself, a couple changing labels and things like that. They also will need to add a temporary turnaround kind of toward the end, a little further down Jerry Lynn Way, in order to just facilitate this road still kind of under construction in this area. So but beyond that, this site plan's in good order. So we'd be happy to answer any questions.
What's the current status of the mail kiosk, the feature of mail kiosks? I know there was some discussion that might go away.
Well, I read actually one of my planning colleagues from West Tennessee emailed me a link to an article basically stating the frustrations that they're experiencing in West Tennessee, similar to what we're experiencing here. I believe there is some legislation going federally that has been sponsored to not require kiosks and everything. Not to, well, I should say, to make it so the U.S. Postal Service doesn't have the ability to require that in subdivisions. Now, I don't know where that is currently or anything, but as far as like I've told developers, it's the county's not the one making. If you don't want to put in a kiosk, that's perfectly fine with us. We don't care. But then you'll have to figure out how you're going to handle delivery. Right. The only other way would be post office boxes, I guess. The post office is just saying we're not going to deliver mail curbside anymore. So, we've had some developers kind of, I think they realize now at the beginning that they're getting kind of irritated with us, but I think they realize now that we're just saying if you're going to put them in, this is what you got to do, So, all that to say, I really don't know.
I'll make a motion to approve subject to staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Northside Estates Phase 2 mail kiosk. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposition, motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6C4, 20-3005, Buchanan Estates, Section 8, mail kiosk. Construction of a mail kiosk and related parking zoned RM located along Volta Road. Jones Construction Company is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, sir. As far as our comments are concerned on this, they have been addressed. Staff doesn't have any further comments on this. We did have several comments on this particular one, but they've addressed those. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve 20-3005 Buchanan Estates, Section 8 mail kiosk. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposition, motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6C5, 20-3007, Waldron Farms, Section 6, mail kiosk. Construction of mail kiosk and related parking, Zone RM, previously PRD, located along Nickel Trace. Mary Waldron Baird is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, as far as our comments are concerned, most have been addressed. They still need to do a little bit of work on the ramp grading and spacing for ADA accessibility. Beyond that, as soon as they can get that situated, they should be in good shape. So we just recommend approval with that stipulation.
So- Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve T20-3007 Waldron Farms, Section 6 mail kiosk. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6C6 20-3006 Big Rig Parking, construction of a tractor trailer parking area, transport and warehousing, use zoned EAC located along Forbes Drive. Big Red Parking is the applicant, Doug.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is a little bit of an unusual site plan. We don't see these kind of things very often. Just for reference, this is located right across from Love's Travel Stop over there off of the Epps Mill exit, off of I-24, exit 89. There's that area right there that Mike's highlighting in that area. You can see it's already pretty much, that area is pretty heavily traveled by tractor trailers and things as it is now. Essentially what they are proposing to do is this is like an overnight parking area for larger trucks. As I understand it, there has to be a reservation that's made, and then this is all, the gate and everything's operated by Bluetooth. Once you have approval to get in there, you go, it recognizes it somehow, lets the driver in, they park, and then they just circulate out, overnight when they're finished. So that's really what we would consider more of a transport warehousing type use, similar to the truck stop right across the street where Love's Travel Stop is located. So it's something definitely with all the trucks in that area you can see that's needed. So they identified this site as something that they would like to investigate. The big reason this is coming before the Planning Commission tonight is due to they're not really building necessarily any large structures or anything. From that standpoint, we could have handled it administratively. The biggest issue that they're running into is the landscaping. When you look at the landscape plan, they are showing a fairly substantial amount of plantings, but if you looked at the letter of the ordinance, there'd be a whole lot more plantings required than what they are showing. I mean, a lot, just because of the amount of paved area and everything that they are proposing. Staff understands where the applicant is coming from as far as the amount of plantings. A lot of those plantings, if you start putting landscape islands in the middle of an area where you're parking 18-wheelers, I mean, that's going to get hit. It's going to die. It's not going to maintain. I mean, I see where they're coming from. Mm-hmm. But for what they're proposing, it's still a fairly substantial amount of landscape material. Most of the area surrounding this is already zoned EAC, so they don't require any buffering. There's a small portion on the backside that is zoned RM. They will have to do a little bit of buffering on that side beyond the cell tower. But as far as the landscape plan itself, they're asking for an approval as an alternative landscape scheme for more practical use of the landscaping around here rather than just make them plant all this for the sake of planting it. I thought what they proposed made more sense, quite frankly. So I told them that this would be the route to get that approved. So with that, most of our comments have been addressed. Mike, I don't know if you had anything outstanding that you still wanted to talk about. Okay.
No.
But beyond that, of course, this would still have to go through construction, pre-construction meeting and everything before they could get permits to get moving with anything. But, the plan itself, I mean, we think it's an appropriate area, it's appropriate use. But, again, the big reason is for the landscape plan. So be happy to answer any questions.
And we are looking at a final plat to subdivide the property.
Mm-hmm.
This would be a tract by itself. And they are proposing to extend Forbes Drive and add a cul-de-sac at the end of it. And that portion of Forbes would be dedicated to the county.
For me, stormwater on this?
Yes. They are going to utilize the existing stormwater detention pond back here that was established for Love's Travel Stop and the adjacent properties. They are going to have to do some work on it and evaluate it. It was evaluated a few years back.
Based on gravel?
Well, for this parking lot addition for Love's here,
okay. They
they added this 10 years ago, maybe something like that. But as you can see, it needs a little attention. It has the capacity to handle this additional impervious area, but it just needs some TLC.
One positive note for me on this is if we can get those trucks off the ramps, off the interstate ramps,
yes, you
then I'm
should
all
know better
for it.
than
If we can,
anybody,
if we can get enforcement after this, you
What-
got a place
yeah.
to go.
What Mr. Vogel's talking about is a lot of times there's no room at the end at the Love's Travel Stop, so they'll park on the ramps.
Especially that westbound on ramp right there that's in that curve. That is the other one, the on ramp coming
Oh,
from
the on-ramp,
Love's.
yeah,
That
yeah.
one's in a hard curve. That's
Yeah,
a
they
tough
can't
one.
find anything, so they'll come back here and just park.
So once that's built, enforcement.
So let me ask you, Lee, thank you. Speaking of a place to go, now that you've dedicated overnight parking, are you required to put restroom facilities here for these guys and gals?
From planning and engineering standpoint, there's no requirement to do that. Now, there is, of course, they're not associated with the truck stop across the street, Love's Travel Stop, but there are facilities, as I understand it, there that they could take advantage of, should they need to.
Does that need to be addressed, or?
Because this has sewer connection as well, so it's got a bathhouse facility in Love's, doesn't it?
It's
It
on
has
city
shower
sewer.
facilities.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on city sewer.
But it's not part of Love's.
Correct.
So they're not going to want random people coming in and using their restroom or showers.
Love's does rent those showers.
They do really,
You pay a fee.
Okay.
I don't know about the toilets.
I'm sure they'll fuel there too.
I guess you
So,
go.
I mean,
I guess
the-
you go in
the-
your truck, but
It's potential clients for the fuel, for the restaurants. I mean, it's,
Guess that makes a case for more plantings, doesn't it?
From our standpoint,
Yeah.
from our, that's good. I just caught what he said. Yeah, but from planning and engineering standpoint, there's nothing that would say, hey, you have to provide a restroom facility. This would, in my mind, wouldn't be a whole lot different, at least from a use standpoint, like a mini warehouse type facility that doesn't have an office or anything. Now, that's granted more of a temporary type use in and out, but not all of them have. A lot of them are just operated by kiosk anymore these days. There's not offices there or anything like that. No one's
How
actually
will
working
this-
on the site.
How will this affect the traffic and the trucks going in and out? And this is going to increase the truck traffic?
yeah, Epps Mill is not your
well,
easiest place to get in.
I think, I mean, quite frank, and Mike, feel free to chime in. I think a lot of these trucks are going to be coming this way regardless, because they're going to be coming this way looking for a place to stay, maybe on Love's Travel Stop. This gives them at least a little more certainty that when they get there, they've already have a reservation. They know there's a spot in this place for them to get in there and go. So they get there and they park rather than circling around trying to find something. And like Lee's
That's a neat
concern, oh, I can't find any place to stay. I'm just going to go ahead and park it on the side of the interchange here, and then just
Happens.
which, oh yeah,
and the engineering highway department has been working with the state on making improvements. The state has evaluated this interchange, and they're looking at doing signalization, and the highway superintendent has suggested that we do some improvements with the state or with their approval of shifting the through lane, I guess, farther to the south towards the old Outpost Armory site to give trucks more room to turn in and out. Part of the problem is this huge power pole right here. I think it's the trucks coming, trying to make this turn, coming in and out. They have to swing wide on the through lane and kind of hold up traffic. So we're trying to get them to county, state, whatever, look at adding the lane, shifting the through lane farther to the south towards the Outpost Armory. But we've got to get some approval and coordination with the owners to the south here. So we are looking at that pinch point right there.
Doug, I know our ordinance might not cover everything, but I'm still interested in knowing if you're going to be there for overnight or for your required resting that a truck driver has. What are they going to do to, on the side of the road, I don't know, on the side of the interstate, you see those pull-offs. I don't know what they do there either to
Not
take
good.
to take a restroom break, but whatever they do there, and if it's not good, it's not going to be good here, in my mind. So I want to see the plan. I want to know what they're going to do.
Well,
It
and
may not meet any ordinance, but I want to know what they're going to do.
they need trash receptacles because they're going to generate a lot of trash, right?
A
And
roll-off.
this may become a high traffic, and I'm sorry, a crime rate too.
What I don't
You're
want
putting-
is people passing by on the car and cars and trucks and everything else and seeing,
Whatever.
yeah, how do I say it without saying it on TV? Seeing those acts that we're talking about.
Less family-friendly type activities.
Yeah. I mean, you're putting 100, you have the potential of 100 spaces approximately here. That could generate all kinds of crazy crime right there. Well,
My name is Jeremy, represent SEC again. I'm representing the firm that's proposing this property. These concerns are a lot of good concerns. The developer who's proposing this is actually, their main development is providing these new innovative big truck facilities. This facility is going to be privately gated on all sides. It's going to have photometric lighting up to the county standard across the entire project. It's also going to have closed caption cameras across the entire property that the signal is sent to their headquarters, and they can see if there's any crime or anything being committed. It is being recorded 24 hours a day. There's also trash receptacles at every one of the islands, as well as a dumpster enclosure proposed. That is maintained at least twice a week by a third-party service. The applicant is also working with Love's Truck Stop to provide those facilities that you're requesting for the bathrooms and the showers. Love's is very, very eager to have them there. It's increasing their traffic, by 30 or 40% just by the sheer volume of trucks that's going to be there. The applicant is very excited to have this here, and if there's any other concerns, I can answer them, but I feel like overall this meets the area. This satisfies the big truck need there.
Stay right there. What if we put a contingency upon this based upon that agreement with Love Truck Stops? Could we do that?
You're wanting to condition approval upon
Yes.
receiving that?
Yes.
Or at least a plan, a formalized plan.
Yeah, I think I'd be more comfortable with some sort of just seeing the formalized plan, maybe not necessarily have the agreement with it. I understand your concerns, so.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I know this guy's working things out, and I agree with all of that. But what if Love says, no, we're not going to do it, and they've already got this thing approved, we're right back where we are, and we're going to be the ones that are going to be blamed for all of those things that might go on out there. So do you understand what we're saying?
I mean, I do, but the facilities are there. Love's can't deny any of the patrons who want to walk in their stores to use their restroom facilities. The facilities are there. Currently, this property doesn't have access to sewer. It doesn't have any septic fields available, and it's not available to access city sewer as the Love's property is. So a septic field or a sewage disposal system on site isn't available to this property. That's why this was proposed as essentially a parking lot.
Okay.
We don't think that a building could be proposed here just because of that. So what other use could this property be used for?
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I have to go back to it's new clients for the restaurants on either side of Forbes Drive and the fuel, purchasing fuel. So, but it's, it's up to y'all's discretion.
well, okay, he mentioned a privacy gate. So how are you going to get, I guess you have to park your vehicle at Love's first, go in, because you won't be able to walk. I mean, once you're in the parking lot, you're locked in.
No,
Right.
there's a pedestrian gate accessed at the front as well as a sidewalk that allow those patrons to
That's what I was
leave
looking for.
the gated parking lot to any facility that they wish. The trucks currently are backing up on 3-lane parking Forbes Drive, completely blocking that road. The county has to be called at least once a week just to get them off of Forbes Drive. So they're already walking in the roadway. They're already walking to Love's, back parking at the temporary turnaround that's at the gravel road down there.
So the security or access is related solely to the trucks
yeah, here we go.
themselves, not
Yes.
the pedestrians in and out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we wanted to put a condition on it, what would the condition be? Some type of an agreement or
Well, yeah, just
exploration?
yeah,
or
the
something?
plan that shows that they're working with the about how the restroom facilities and things are going to be handled. If they had something from there said, we've worked with Love's Travel Shop, they're happy with us, I think we'd be all right with it.
And just one thing, I was trying to look really quickly to see what the furthest distance away from the Love stop to the back end of that parking lot, because if it's not real convenient,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm kind of glad to see something like this
Yes.
going in.
Yeah.
But I can also see some other issues that citizens of Rutherford County may not be in love with.
I guess
And once again, I don't, I know our zoning ordinance won't cover everything that comes up, and this may be one of those things, but I think it's our job to do good planning for the future. And that question to me is still out there. I see them on interstate ramps all the time, going up and down 40 especially, and I just see them all the time, and I think this is a good plan to relieve some of that stuff, but I also see some potential issues there. But
and I'm okay to forego the landscaping because they are obstacles and it may encourage crime or something.
And they will still have landscaping. They're not completely.
Just not to the extent.
Right. I just want to make sure that was clear. Yeah.
So, Doug, this area is completely fenced, correct?
The area where the trucks will be?
With a pedestrian gate, not just a walkway. Now,
It'll have a lift gates, from what I've been told, for the trucks.
I just mean for traffic walking in. I'm concerned about the crime element to it and trying to reduce the people that come and go if they're not a trucker coming in there and harassing the truckers, you may say. And will the sheriff's office have access to that gate control to go in and patrol that?
Well, I believe the gates are Yelp sensor activated if they needed to go in there. I believe I saw that on here. Bluetooth with Yelp mode. Yeah, it's Yelp on there. Mode. Yeah, so to answer your question, the Yelp mode allows emergency vehicles to get in there if necessary. Yes.
And hopefully the camera coverage will help with that too.
Right.
Okay, we probably beat this horse to death. Anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Go ahead.
I'll second.
With that report or with that
understanding.
If you can get one from Love, I don't know. I mean,
well, we'll just see. I'm
gonna say, you're welcome.
Yeah, the applicant's representative is here, of course, and has spoke, and so he knows. I think he has a good idea what you're needing.
Yeah.
Very good.
Second.
Just got one question though. So Love's obviously is welcoming of this project, but what happens if they don't sign a letter? If they don't sign an official letter stating that we can't use their restroom facilities, what happens?
Well, what are the truckers going to do? Let me ask you that.
No, I'm just asking in general.
Well, I'm just asking too. What are if we don't get that from Love's, what are the truckers going to do?
I mean, currently the parking lot at the Love's truck stop at the far end is the same use. It's the same distance. They're walking the same distance that this property would be. So I'm completely okay with that letter. I'm just saying if they deny it, is this project denied? That's all I'm asking.
No, I think what we're saying is that you'll work on a plan.
Yeah.
That you don't have to necessarily have it, but you'll work on it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want to provide restroom facilities for our clients if it's available.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah.
Very good.
You know where we have.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve with them working on some type of a plan for.
To accommodate the facilities.
Accommodate facilities.
That's
okay,
fine.
thank you. Everybody understand what we're doing?
Of course not.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve 20-3006 Big Red Parking. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Oh, yeah.
Motion to approve carries. Thank you. We had one to add on, didn't we, Doug?
Yes, we did. Thank you for reminding me. I forgot.
It's, that was the bottom.
I'm sorry, you drive.
Okay.
I forgot about that part. Jeff, I'm glad you remembered that.
Is it on our kiosk here?
It's right. It's not on that. No.
Okay.
This is something I put on here this morning. This is AJ's Tree Service. This was approved back in, I believe it was 2018. It's been outside of its 18-month window. They've made some changes. They've actually reduced the footprint of what they're wanting to build. They're putting a couple lean-tos on next to that 1,600 square foot shop on either side. They're 20 by 40. If they could have made those a little bit smaller, we could have done administratively, but they wanted to keep them that size. We've looked at this plan on and off over the last few months and the changes they want to make. We're okay with the changes. It turns out the site plan expired. So we're just asking for reapproval at this point. That's it.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. I don't know what the number is, but it's for AJ Tree Service.
We'll figure it out.
Any other questions or comments on this? No. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. Staff reports. Doug.
Yes, sir. This one, let me just bear a second here as I open this up here. And I can email this to you. I know we've been here for a little while, so there's probably several of us that are wanting to kind of wrap things up. But just real quick, every year we try to present to you a kind of an overview of our activities for the past year. This is what this is right here. Like I said, we can email this to you so you can look at it in more detail. Kind of go through, projects that we've worked on over 2019, talk about some of the things we would like to work on in 2020. But what I'd like to concentrate on here more than anything really is just kind of looking at the amount of our available lot inventory over the last several years. We started keeping up with this list back in January of 2009. And you can see I tried to annotate some of these points as best I could. When we first started looking at this, of course, we know that we were kind of in the heights of the recession back in January of 2009. And you can see at that time, this is total available lots. These are those lots that have been recorded and have building permits pulled pretty much any time. These are recorded lots. The chart started out about 1,618 lots. At its highest point was almost 1,700 lots that were just, again, on the ground waiting for building permits. Then you can see things started kind of happening, and you can see how that lot inventory has just dwindled and dwindled and dwindled over the last several years until you get to right in between 2016 and 2017. We bottomed out at about 548 lots. Then you kind of see we kind of went up and then kind of just hovered really around 600-700 lots. And over the last year or two, you can see it's been kind of creeping back up a little bit. Like from last month, we were up to 1,033 available lots. So
Define available lots.
the available lots are those that are recorded on the ground, can have building permits issued. This doesn't count all the ones that haven't been recorded, preliminary plans, things like that. These are actual recorded subdivision lots where if you wanted to, you could leave this meeting, walk downstairs, and pull a building permit on one right now. I mean, if you had bought the lot, of course. But that's what this chart is showing. So, things were really going for a while, and they still are. We're still seeing quite a bit of building permit activity. I don't think Tanya's no. Yes, she lived. Oh, she? Oh, I'm sorry. She's over there. She's way in the corner. Yeah, I can't. She was in the corner. And Tanya can speak to the fact that building permit activity is still pretty robust, but I think lately what we've just seen so many more subdivisions come in and so many more plats being recorded that, the building activity, we're just seeing more lots being recorded than permits being pulled is what we're seeing. During this time between, 2010, 2016, you got to remember there were so many lots out there and subdivisions were just getting restarted in a sense. So a lot of that was available inventory. We weren't seeing as many new plats. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of a reversal. We're seeing more new plats. We saw 2 new preliminaries today. We approved new sections of some subdivisions today. So you see that happening. So that's just an idea. This is.
You look at that though, Doug. That's kind of follows the economy to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can look at that, and that looks like the stock market too. The way the stock market's changed too. But
yes,
that's the way the economy has bounced back, starting with that 2017.
Right.
Okay.
So just for your information on that, sorry, go next week. This just gets you an idea of the total number of lots recorded. We keep it at 4 lots and greater because under the older subdivision regulations, of course, we used to break down minor versus major plats by the number of lots. If it was 3 lots or less, it was a minor plat. 4 lots or greater was a major plat. What we've done when we went to our new subdivision regulations is major and minor really is more depending on what activity you're doing. If you're just subdividing property along an existing road, not making any utility changes, that's still a minor plat, even if it's going to be 16 lots. In this situation, what we did is we could compare apples to apples. We just look at 4 lots or greater. So as you can see, again, at the beginning of the recession, we had a pretty stout amount of lots recorded then. Of course, you can see during the recession, 2011, it pretty much bottomed out. But since that time, we've seen it pretty much increase. And like I said, even from it decreased a little bit from 2017 to 18 to 17, but we had a really big increase in 2019. So it just kind of shows you the number of lots that have actually been recorded on plats that had 4 lots or greater.
Go back up.
You have a guess as to where that'll be the end of this year?
Slide.
You want to go back up?
Yeah.
Say that again?
Any type of a guess as to where that'll be the end of this year?
It's hard to say at this point. We still see pretty good amount of activity, so I wouldn't surprise me if it was pretty much relative.
I just want to point out, so right at the end of his available lots, we've got 1,033, and then go back down to the next. So we've recorded 1,500 lots in the last 2 years, and we've got 1,000 on hand. So, Tanya could probably attest to it. There's still a lot of activity.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of activity.
Yeah. There's no doubt. We're still blowing and going. And this just gives you an idea of the amount of rezoning applications we've seen over the last 10 plus years or so. This averages out to about 18 to 19. We've seen a few more. Of course, we had a banner year in 2017. Things kind of slowed down just a little bit in 2018, 2019. So far, like our next planning commission meeting, we're going to have 5, because there was one that was deferred, but there'll be 4 new applications being considered. So, things are moving right along. But like I said, we'll go ahead and email this to you so you can take a look at it. And if you got questions, as always, feel free to ask staff about anything. So just wanted to get that to you. So that was pretty much all I had. Did you have anything?
What's it cost to pull a building permit?
That'd be a Tanya Bell question.
It's based on the square footage of the home.
Give me an average.
An average would be about $1,000.
$1,000?
Yeah, for about a 2,500 square foot home.
When was the last time that was increased?
2-3 years ago. Yeah, about 2-3 years ago.
16, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a fee that's been in place for a long time, you say?
Yeah, long time.
It was increased substantially in 16. I think it went up about 18%.
Duly noted.
Other questions? Is that it, Doug?
That's it.
Been a long day. Thank you for your attendance and your participation today. Our next meeting is scheduled for March the 9th. That'll be a 6 p.m. meeting, and it'll be at the second floor of the historic courthouse. Thank you. We are adjourned.